All right, Shalom, Shalom. First off, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh,
Both
Bahashem, Yahweh Shah,
Yahushai,
Bahashem,
Bahasham,
Rakadash.
Rakakwadash.
I want to give double honors to the apostles, elders, and bishops of GMS who have taught us this word and teach us this word today. And we want to give a salutation unto the hopeful elect scattered across the four corners of this earth, striving for salvation. This is the brother Yatazakba here with the brother you call him out, the brother Kawashab. You know, we are brothers from the GMS Nebraska camp. And in this lesson, what we want to get into is how we are closer to nuclear warfare than ever before. Now you have different war analysts, journalists, different people who have made the statement that in the stage that we're at right now, we're closer to nuclear warfare than during the time of the Cuban Missile Crisis. And during that time, the Cuban Missile Crisis was you know, was a very volatile time where things almost ended in nuclear warfare, you know? Now, I wanted to get this here, which have some quick bullet points on that Cuban Missile Crisis. You know what I'm saying? Not to get too deep into it, but just to show um, some hot points. So the Cuban Missile Crisis was something that happened over the span of a couple weeks. And what started it is that Cuba was aligned with the Soviet Union. This was during the time of the Cold War when the US and the Soviet Union were the two biggest powers in the world, which is still true today. And during the time of the Cold War, this was decades of time where they were fighting for influence in the earth, and people were choosing their sides on, who they were aligned with. Now, Cuba aligned themselves with the Soviet Union. And that's important because Cuba is, not that far away from the US. You could see it from, can y'all brothers still hear me?
Gone.
Okay,
Yeah,
so like
cut out a
my
little
laptop
bit,
that got
but I can
choppy.
hear you.
Okay, kind. But yeah, Cuba is right next to Miami. And what happened is that um the Soviet Union station um was trying to station missiles in Cuba. Now that's major because at the time, we didn't have the world didn't have long range missiles. So to shoot a missile from one country to another, you had to be a certain distance away from it. And having missiles at Cuba was perfect for if Russia ever wanted to do anything to America, you know.
Mhm.
So it says in October 14th, 1962, a US U-2 spy plane photographed Soviet missile sites under construction in Cuba. And that's what set everything off because once that was spotted, uh, the US started scrambling like, yo, we got to put a stop to this. You can't have, the Soviet Union just setting up shop right next to us. So it says President JFK was informed, marking the beginning of the crisis. Kennedy addressed the nation on television and announced a naval quarantine or a blockade of Cuba. Soviet ships approached the quarantine line, raising fears of a military confrontation. Intense negotiations took place, and on October 27th, called Black Saturday, a U.S. U-2 plane was shot down over Cuba, making this the most dangerous day of the crisis. Now, not only was this plane shot down, but you also had an incident where there was a submarine that was hit, a Soviet submarine that was hit with a low impact charge from U.S. Forces. I can't remember if it was a submarine that hit the. Let me see.
Gone.
Yeah, the U.S. Navy hit that submarine with a low impact charge. What you was about to say, Al?
Oh no, yeah, I was just about to confirm it. I was just saying, yeah, like it
Con,
wasn't charge.
con. And so once that Soviet submarine got hit with that charge, they thought they was under attack and they thought war broke out. They was too deep into the ocean to get signals and communication from, up top on what was going on. So the people inside the submarine thought it was wartime. And you
Mhm.
had two of the three people that was needed to confirm to shoot the nuclear missiles that they had stationed in that submarine. Two or three of them said, "Yeah, let's do it. It's time." But there was one person whom the Lord put the spirit in to say, nah, let's just see what's going on first before we make that decision. And if the Lord would have put the spirit in him to go with the other two and say, all right, let's shoot them missiles, it would have been all out nuclear warfare. World War III would have happened right then and there. Y'all brothers have some.
Well, I mean, well, pretty much what you said. I just something that's just confirming it. Like you said, it was a low impact signal. This is October 9, 1962, October 27, 1962. Um, the B-59 near Cuba dropped low impact signal, like you said, signal in charges to force it to the surface. Like you said, Executive Officer Vasily Arkhipov blocked a retaliatory nuclear launch. So, like you were saying, because it was like like you said, a warning signal. You know
Mhm.
what I'm saying? So, I just wanted to further confirm what you were saying, just to back you up.
Yeah. And so the thing is, the Lord, it wasn't in the Lord's will at the time that things would pop off yet. Let's get that second Ezra chapter 4, Baba Bashar.
Hmm. Yep. This is the book of Second Ezra, chapter 4 and verse 37. It says, excuse me, it says, by measure hath he measured the times, and by number hath he numbered the times, and he doth not move nor stir them until the said measure be fulfilled.
Yeah, so the Lord has everything planned out and mapped out how he wants things to go. The Most High knows everything that has happened, is happening, and is going to happen. And he has it happening in a specific order. So he knows, no one knows the day and hour that everything is going to break out and that this destruction is going to come, but the Most High himself. And he decided that at that time, it wasn't time yet. That's why he had that Russian soldier not make that decision, to shoot that missile. Now, just because that it didn't happen then doesn't mean that it's never going to happen. We know that according to the scriptures, that the end of Esau's empire in this world, the end of America, is going to be by way of uh, fire by nuclear missiles. So even though it didn't happen then, every single day that has passed since then and every day that's passing now, we're getting closer and closer to nuclear fallout. We haven't gotten to a situation where, buttons was almost pressed, but that doesn't mean that things aren't leading up to that. When you
Mhm.
look at the doomsday clock, since then, the time is getting closer and closer to midnight. And that doomsday clock is very spiritual because, it's showing that even though things may seem chill, we're going to work, everything's normal, the daily routine of life is happening. That doomsday clock is getting closer and closer to midnight. And the Lord had them make that doomsday clock for a reason to show that eventually there's going to be a time where nuclear warfare is going to break out. It's almost not almost, it is inevitable because it's prophecy. And the Lord said that it was going to happen, you know?
Gone. And I want to bring out a quick quote, just showing like how dire the situation is. This is from a Cold War historian, uh, Radchenko, Sergei Radchenko. It's on the AI overview. It says Radchenko observes a dangerous shift in how modern leaders use nuclear rhetoric compared to their Cold War predecessors. In an analysis for Russia, he contrasted historical Soviet restraint with modern psychological operations and explicitly dangerous escalation ideas, noting that Soviet leaders never resorted to the kind of psychological operations exemplified by Vladimir Putin.
Con, you can get into it, bro.
Yeah, just kind of getting into how he's saying like, damn, because you had Nikita who was president at that time, and he was willing to work with Kennedy, and they worked out a deal.
Hmm.
They would take their missiles out of Cuba, and America would take their missiles out of Italy and Turkey. But Putin, he's more like stern and more. He's always threatening the use of nukes, which
Yeah,
is not, Nikita didn't do it like that. Like you got all these videos. I saw a video that came out with the 3D animation of, New York getting destroyed, and they're always talking about, hey, we got nukes. This is not a bluff. This is not a bluff. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
all.
yeah, and that's showing you that the Lord is putting these leaders into a mindset to where they, we get into a time where they're willing to use these weapons. It's not a thing to where, okay, we have, because when the nukes were originally created, they was created as a sort of I don't have the exact words I'd like to use, but they basically created them to say, okay, we have these weapons of mass destruction, and the fact that we have them should cause people not to use them. The fact that we have them should be reason enough to say, okay, we don't need to resort to this because if we do, we gonna destroy each other. You got something out?
Like
Yeah.
a deterrent.
Because I'm thinking because I get what you're saying. It's kind of like almost like saving something for a rainy day, but hopefully you don't need it. That's what I was trying to
Yeah.
think of. Trying to think of what you were saying. It's like
Yeah.
we got
So
them. Like, really, it's just for it, only if we really need to defend ourselves. We chilling. We got them, but we chilling. We ain't on that unless we have to defend what's ours. You know. So, but you got it. I was just trying to think of what you were trying to put together.
I think you're looking for the word like deterrent, right?
Exactly, exactly. The water, that is the exact word. It's created as a deterrent. Because I looked up why were nukes created, and it says nuclear weapons were created during World War II because Allied leaders feared Nazi Germany would build an atomic bomb first. Driven by this existential threat, the U.S. launched the Manhattan Project to weapon fission and to end the global conflict rapidly. So they wanted to create the bomb to end the conflict because, like, okay, now that we have this is and then dropping the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, they intended for that to be the last time these bombs would ever have to be used. But that's why they say the bombs was created. Why was they really created? The Lord created them to, for the day of judgment. These are the Lord's weapons of his warfare that are going to be used to destroy America, to destroy the land of Israel, and to bring down Esau's power. Let's get unless you did you have a precept?
John, I was thinking Isaiah 54:16.
Perfectly kind. Let's get that.
God, it says, Behold, I have created the smith that bloweth the coals in the fire,
Hmm.
and that bringeth forth an instrument for his work,
Hmm.
and I have created the waster to destroy.
So the Lord said, I created the smith that blew at the coals in the fire. And what that's saying is that uh, um, the Lord put Oppenheimer on this earth. The Lord put the different scientists that was with Oppenheimer, around the time, that was, the German scientists and those involved with the Manhattan Project. He put them here so that they would, create that weapon. The Lord had them for an intended purpose, and it says, I've created the smith that blew at the coals in the fire. What that's talking about is how they figured out the science behind nuclear fission and nuclear fusion to create these chain reactions and these great, explosions. It says, and that bring it forth an instrument for his work. So these people brought forth an instrument. They thought they was bringing forth an instrument for America. They thought they was bringing forth an instrument for Russia. No, they brought forth an instrument for the Most High. You know, it
Yeah,
says, and I have created the waster to destroy. So this is the Lord was accomplishing something when these weapons was made. And we can go to let's go to Second Ezra chapter 16, and we'll go to verse 13.
and after that, if you don't mind, I want to bring out a piece. I'm just putting some on the back burner because
All right,
what you made a very good point. So,
Con, you can bring it out right now, bro.
um,
Yeah, yeah. Just you can bring yours out first, Bubba Shah.
no, baby, don't do me like that. Um, damn. You go ahead. I gotta find it. Well, I can quote it, but I still want to find it because, like you mentioned, like this is the Lord's destruction because it says the fire of His indignation. You know,
Hmm.
so though these missiles are something that we see, these physical altercations, these wars and rumors of wars that's going on, nuclear talks, and this is all the Lord's indignation that's being built up. But you go ahead. I got to find it, brother. I don't want to hold you up.
All right, Khan. This is Second Ezra chapter 16, verse 13, which says, "For strong is his right hand that bendeth the bow. His arrows that he shooteth are sharp and shall not miss when they begin to be shot into the ends of the world." So when it's talking about the bow and the arrow there, and it's talking about, them being shot, this is all symbolic talk for the missiles. Because what arrow is being shot from one end of the earth to the other? Well, we do know a weapon that can get from one end of the earth to another, which is an ICBM, an intercontinental ballistic missile. Now, the creation of an ICBM in itself shows that we're getting closer and closer to nuclear warfare than we've ever been. Because, like we was talking about with the Cuban Missile Crisis, what really set everybody off was the fact that an enemy's weaponry was being set up close enough to America that it would be effective and make it over here. Now that's not an issue. You can shoot that missile all the way from Russia and make it to America. You can shoot a missile from America and make it all the way to Russia, all the way to China. Iran is saying that they have weaponry that they can shoot all the way to America. And why it may not be nuclear weaponry, it's still, a weapon of that can, deal out great damage. So that shows you that, people's artilleries have been modernized. Um, since the time of the Cuban Missile Crisis, there have been multiple countries that have, uh, amassed their own store of nuclear missiles. You
Yeah,
know,
and
go ahead.
that's a beautiful point that you're making because like a lot of news that's like overpassed and kind of looked at like just pushed to the side is like when you just see like North Korea, you know what I'm saying, testing their long range missiles that landed somewhere in the ocean or something like that. You see uh, China testing out said little missile or rocket. The Lord is helping these nations. The Lord is putting a spirit on these nations, like you were mentioning, to build up this technology, to build up this war, this uh the infantry, for lack of a better word, that when the time comes for His judgment to come to pass, is perfect.
Yeah,
You know, because that's what the Lord's judgment is going to be a perfect judgment. You know, and we know that that judgment for Babylon is the missiles. So why not through time and time? And this, and I'm thinking about it myself. You know, and now like the kilometers they speak about this missile went so many kilometers, things like that, which you had to go look into that. But you know, these missiles are going miles and miles and miles without falling to the earth. You know what I'm saying? And so the Most High is building up their warfare in a sense to when time comes, it's a wrap for Babylon. You know,
Mhm.
I
yeah.
did, but if there's more to what you had, I can hold off.
Go ahead. It can wait. Go ahead.
And this is the book of Revelation 14 in verse 10. It says, "The same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of the Most High, which is poured out without mixture in the cup of his indignation, and he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb." So, you know, to give more edification on that, this is speaking of like the judgment of the chip, but that fire and that brimstone, it shows that this is the cup of the Lord's indignation. You know, that's the point that I want to get to because, like you were mentioning, these different nations making these missiles and they have their own missiles now. That's not them. That's the Lord doing that. You know, so those same individuals that are over here, whenever that happens, that's the Lord's indignation. That's the Lord's doing. You know, even though it's being carried out by, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Khan, I got a preset for you real quick. This is Proverbs 21:1. The king's heart is in the hand of Yahweh. As the rivers of water, he turneth it whithersoever he will.
Mhm.
You
Hmm.
know,
Yeah, go
showing
ahead.
us how the Lord is the one controlling their minds at the end of the day, you know.
Yeah, yeah. The brother had made a great point before we started the lesson. When you think about Pharaoh in Exodus, to where he had things that he wanted to do, but the Lord had what he wanted Pharaoh to do. So it didn't matter what, decision Pharaoh wanted to make. There was multiple times where Pharaoh was like, "Man, the Lord is putting hands on me. I'm about to just let the Israelites go." But then the Lord will have Pharaoh change his mind and harden his heart and keep the Israelites. And but why did he do that? Because the Lord had a purpose for Pharaoh. The Lord had it to where he wanted to show his power. He wanted to bring that destruction upon Egypt, so that his glory could be shown. So he caused Pharaoh to do what? To go into the direction that the Lord wanted him to go, even though it wasn't logical, even though he wanted to do the opposite. And that brings me to this next thing, because these leaders have they created something called the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, and it says a landmark 1968 international agreement that took effect in 1970. It aims to stop the spread of nuclear weapons, promote safe, peaceful uses of nuclear energy, and push for total nuclear disarmament. So back in 1970, they came up with this treaty to say, hey, all the missiles y'all got right now, okay, cool. Don't make no more. And nobody else make any more. So, stop, going forward with nuclear technology. You need to put an end to this. And since 1970, uh, so let's get this real fast, because leading up to 1970, you had the US that had missiles, the Soviet Union, the United Kingdom, France, and China. Now, uh, since then, during this time of this nuclear non-proliferation treaty, Israel got missiles, India got missiles, Pakistan got missiles, and North Korea got missiles. And all of the countries that got missiles have been modernizing their technology and making it more effective since that agreement got made. So that's showing you that even though they know that it would be smart to just throw away this technology altogether if they don't want to destroy each other, destroy the world, the Lord has it to where they just going forward with that technology anyway, you know? Because the Lord's judgment has to come to pass, you know? You got countries that join the treaty and say, okay, I'm gonna listen to y'all. I'm gonna chill with my nuclear technology, and then left the treaty because they wanted to continue with it anyway, you know? But let's go to Joel chapter 3, verse 9, Baba Kasha.
It's the spirit. Yeah, it was Joel 3 verse 9. It says, "Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare a war, wake up the mighty men, let all the men of war draw near, let them come up. Beat your plowshares into swords, and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong."
Yeah, so it says, the Lord saying, prepare a war, get into a war mindset. It says, beat your plowshares into swords, your pruning hooks into spears. Plowshares and pruning hooks are weapons, are tools of agriculture, tools of farming, and they represent times of peace. It represents times of building up, and you know what I'm saying? But when you're switching and you're turning that peaceful mindset, or you're turning those tools of agriculture, you're bringing it into weapons of warfare, your mindset is shifting. You're on a whole different type of time now.
Hmm.
And we see that. Go ahead. You was about to say that? You about to say
Oh,
something?
yeah, go ahead. I'm looking at something. Go ahead.
Because it says, let the weak say, I am strong. So you got countries that may not be as strong as Russia. You got countries that may not be strong as the US. But once you get a nuclear missile,
Hmm.
we at the same strength now.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
India is an economic powerhouse, but when we talking about like warfare and they armies, India can't do nothing to the US. But once you add missiles into the mix, that's a different story. Pakistan can't, but once you add missiles into the mix, that's a different story. It's just like the gun. It's just like that's why the gun was created. It's called what? The Great Equalizer. A
Hmm.
missile is a global version of the Great Equalizer. It's where, okay, you bigger than me, you stronger than me, you can do this to me. All right, I got a gun. Mess with me now, So that's what missile doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Y'all brothers have something?
Yeah, I want to bring some out real quick. So in the same verse, I want to bring the NLT out and I want to get a definition. So Joel 3 and 10 says, "Hammer your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Train even your weaklings to be warriors." Which when we go into this precept, we understand that those the weak, those those are these countries that like you mentioned, didn't really have thermonuclear capability at a point, right? But it says to train, and that's what I want to get into that word train real quick. That's why that's why I was laughing. It's like that is heavy, bro. When you get to the word train and the etymology, all right, the verb says to discipline, teach, bring to a desired state or condition by means of instruction, right? Which probably extended from the earlier sense of draw out, manipulate in order to bring to a desired form. So the most like we were going into, oh, it's even more. But no, even with that point, the Most High is building these nations up. He's putting them in a spirit. He's it says to manipulate in order to bring to a desired form. So building them up to that point of war. You know what I'm saying? We weren't ready at a point. But the Most High, his spirit being throughout the earth, and like you mentioned in Proverbs 21, his spirit being within the hearts of the kings, he's building up these different nations and getting them ready and prepared to tear Babylon down, man. At a point, they weren't ready. At a point, they didn't have no defense. At a point, they didn't have anything to be offensive with. Now they do, you know. And just one more little point to add to that. It says to exercise, drill, and discipline. You know, so the Most High is he's the Most High. Hey, call Allah he's building these nations up for His purpose. You know, so that's why I want to get into that word train because it all correlates to prophecy and things that you were saying. You know, it brought that to the forefront. That's the spirit, man. But yep, that's it though, brothers.
You had something you was about to say, Copper Shop?
I was just gonna say, like, it's crazy how people think that they're building all these nukes with the technology to send it anywhere in the world and they're just gonna sit on it. Like,
Yeah.
like the example you brought out with the gun, man. It's like, yeah, a lot of people use it as a deterrent, but how many more people actually use it? You know, it's only a matter of time, and it's on the Lord's time. When the Lord decides to do it, He's gonna go into their minds and just make them push the button.
hmm Yeah, man, because I looked it up. I was like, different quotes from the last few years of explicit threats of nuclear use. And people like Putin keeps coming up, Kim Jong-un keeps coming up, you know what I'm saying? Um, Kim Jong-un in 2024 said that North Korea would use all of its offensive capabilities, including nuclear weapons, if its sovereignty were violated. Putin said Russia repeatedly threatened nuclear escalation in connection with Western military support for Ukraine, which they're doing. They're supporting
Mm,
Ukraine. And it says Congress Research Service described this as a sustained campaign of nuclear coercive signaling. But Putin keeps saying, you keep on getting it, keeping Western influence where it don't need to be. If you keep butting your nose in my business, I'm gonna take it there.
hmm
The North Korea is saying the same thing. If y'all try to get over on us, how y'all trying to get over on the Middle East, all these different countries that you've gotten over throughout history, we will take it there. You
Mm-hmm.
know, these are explicit threats. And like the brother said, you think they making all this technology and they just gonna chill. That's why they be having them different shows where they cut where North Korea they create a new missile and then they parading it down the street. You know what I'm saying? People walking next to it and stuff like they ain't just showing off for no reason. They saying, hey, this what we gonna use on you, you
hmm
know? So uh let's go to Revelation chapter 18, verse 10. Because there's something else that's showing that we even closer to nuclear fallout than ever before is not only the amount of missiles we have now, but the destructive power of the missiles. And like we mentioned earlier, how easy they are to use and how quickly everything would just go, how
hmm
quickly everything is going to just go haywire once it gets there. Let's grab that
Yeah.
precept.
Even like with Russia, they made the Satan too. They said that one missile by itself could take out a landmass of the size of Texas. That one, you know, that's the Most High's dealings. You know, but you got it, brother.
Con, I got that Revelation 18 and 10 for you. It says, standing afar off for the fear of her torment saying, Alas, alas, that great city Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour is thy judgment come.
Yeah, so it says in 1 hour thy judgment is come. And that's going into how quickly that America would be destroyed when the missiles are shot here, because we gotta remember what the scriptures say is gonna happen once that nuclear warfare breaks out. It says, All ye that bend the bow, shoot at her. That's talking about Babylon. So all the nuclear technology from these different countries, even its allies, there's gonna be things that lead up to where the Lord is gonna have everybody that got nukes to shoot at America. Now, Baba Gashad, can we look up how many nuclear missiles exist in the world right now?
God,
And by the way, this is documented. Think about how much is undocumented. You know,
Um, 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 okay, no, it's like that. So I gotta wait.
Here, let me see. How many
God,
nuclear missiles are in the world? So it says that there's about 12,200 nuclear warheads spread across 9 nations. Now, not only do you have them 12,000 missiles or them 12,000 nuclear warheads, but then them different nuclear warheads have different payloads. They have different amounts of bombs inside of them. And so those bombs inside of the warheads is what's actually doing the damage. The missile itself is just a carrier that's bringing it from one place to another.
hmm
So inside you may have 10, 15, 20, I don't know, bombs inside of the warhead. And that is what's going to make the destruction so swift and so great, you
hmm
know? And that's where the scriptures talk about I forget the precept. It's in Revelation, I believe it's chapter 9, where it's talking about like how they not gonna break their rank, and it talks about like,
I think that's Joel, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah, let's get that.
Yeah,
Because it
Joel.
goes into the number of them.
Okay, yeah, yeah, I got that. It is one in Revelation.
Yeah, Revelation 9 and 16, that's what I'm looking for.
So Revelation, God damn it. So Revelation chapter 9 and verse 16. I don't know why I did that. Revelation 9, verse 16, it says, And the number of the army of the horsemen were 200,000, and I heard the number of them. And just to confirm, the NLT says, I heard the size of the army, which was 200 million mounted troops. You
Kind.
know,
And you can read on to the next verse as well.
okay. Back in the KJV, verse 17, it says, And thus I saw the horses in the vision, and then they sat on them, having breastplates of fire and of jacinth and brimstone, and the heads of the horses were as the heads of lions, and out of their mouths issue fire and smoke and brimstone.
So it's explaining like the composition of that missile. It says having breastplates of fire and jacinth. That's as it's coming over here and it's going. You know what I'm saying? The fire's coming out of the back of it. It's going so fast that it has the fire around it. It says that it was 200 thousand or 200 million. So even though there's only 12,000 missiles, like I mentioned, it says here a single nuclear weapon is the AI overview. I looked up, there's a note that there's a nuke code multiple warheads. It says a single nuclear weapon contains only one explosive nuclear payload. However, a single long-range missile can carry multiple independent warheads inside its nose cone. So with all of that added up, you're going to get into, the millions of explosives. And then outside of just the nukes, think about all the lower, yield missiles that these nations are going to be sending as well. That's going to be doing, different destructive damage. So the point is, um, we're at a stage where, nuclear destruction is even easier than before to get to. Not only, you don't have to set up right next to your enemies no more to get a missile over to them. You could be at home, with your missile silos that you have at your country and hit a button and it's going over to your enemy. And once you press that button, there is no turning it back and being like, never mind, let me reverse the missile and park it back into the missile silo. No, once you press that button, it's over with. And we see how tense things are getting in the earth. War is there's no end in sight to these wars. They're going to get worse and worse and worse. Tensions are going to get worse and worse and worse to the point to where it's going to get to this point of nuclear warfare. And this is why we're coming out with our message to the Israelites, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, those who are Israelite by their father's blood, who may not look like those nations. We're sending this message out unto the hopeful elect, that we get right with the Lord, because once this destruction comes, there ain't no we need salvation from the Lord to be beamed up into a chariot to avoid this destruction. Ain't no bunker gonna help. Ain't no leaving the country gonna help. That's no, we're looking for salvation,
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
And you got something, bro?
yeah. Just it says like it says in I believe it's Hebrews where it says that there's no other name under heaven whereby we must be saved. And then it also mentions along with that the righteous shall scarcely be saved.
Hmm.
So there's no pavilion or refuge outside of Yahweh Shem El Shai that we're gonna get out of here. You know, it's just period point blank. That's it. So yeah, just want to add to that. Because they're going to be people that are going to try to hide from this destruction. And if wherever the Most High wants to get you, how He wants to get you, He's going to get you. Whoever it is, if He wants to preserve you, He'll do that. But yeah, that's it on my end with that.
Yeah, so that's pretty much the point. Did you have anything else, Kawashad?
Nah.
Yeah, that's pretty much the point. Lord willing, this lesson was edifying. Once again, we want to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh,
Yahweh
Bahashem,
Bahashem, Yahweh
Yahushai,
Shai,
Bahashem,
Bahashem,
Rakakwadash.
Rakadash.
Want to once again give double honors to the apostles, elders, and bishops of GMS, and a salutation to the hopeful elect. Shalom.
Shalom.